Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Elkmont Station, crafty food and drink right off Campbell Station Road in West Knoxville. From the same folks behind Scrambled Jake's Breakfast Company. This great restaurant features it's an ever-evolving menu, handcrafted food and drinks, just terrific rustic atmosphere. Visit elkmontstationknox.com to learn more. And if you've ever eaten over at Scrambled Jake's and enjoyed that, guarantee you're going to like Elkmont Station as well. Crafty food and drink. All right, welcome back with Jimmy and Chuck here. Greg Sankey had a lot to say this week at Media Days. I'm just going to blow through a couple of the topics that I thought were interesting. And one thing we were talking about before the show, Greg Sankey probably did 50 interviews this week, if not 100 interviews. Well, he might have said this to one guy and this to another guy. So it's a little frustrating when you're trying to put a show together. You never know which one you're going to go with. Which one's the, well, he said that to 99 other guys. You found the one that doesn't work. So anyway, we're just going to show you what I found that he said. And let's take a look. First of all, he was asked about scheduling. I thought it was interesting. He was asked about the 8 or 9 game schedule, which he was very mouthy about down there in Destin. Then they turned out to do the 8 game schedule instead of 9. And he had to come back there and kind of dance around it. This week's Brandon Marcello of 24/7 asked him about the schedule. He said, we'll see. We're at 8. We announced 8. There are plenty of opinions around 8 or 9. When I saw after it was announced 8, it was, wow, that's a really rigorous schedule. I'm not going to talk about all the hurdles. You just have to make a decision. I just thought that was kind of quite the shift from as mouthy as he was at Destin. He sounded like he didn't want to get into it with 24/7. He was also asked about expansion and the continued realignment. And he said, we are a super conference. I'm focused on growth to 16, is what he told the Action Network. It's not been a topic for the SEC. Do I think it's done? People say I get to decide that. We know who we are. We're comfortable who we are. He then told On3.com, we're focused on our expansion to 16. There's a lot of work that has been done, still a lot of work to do before next year. Very mindful of what's happening around us. I'm not a recruiter. I've not been a recruiter. We want to do things so well that people are interested in being part of us, and that's what happened at Oklahoma and Texas, but our focus very clearly is on 16. It's not on further growth. He also went on to kind of lay out the problems you'd run into, and there were several if you expanded past 16 and went to 20, for example. Jimmy, you spoke to him. Did you talk to him about the expansion, and what did he have to say?
Yeah, he said that he thinks that things need to settle down for a while. He said, but realignment will happen in the future, that it's not done. He also said to a Jacksonville station that if the SEC does expand, he wants to keep it to a contiguous state, which now could be Arizona or Colorado. But he was leaning in the direction of North Carolina and Virginia as to where he was looking at potential expansion if the SEC does add some teams.
Yeah, because you've already got Florida and South Carolina. Because I think the next two teams would be Clemson and Florida State, and then you would probably add. You'd want to get North Carolina, Virginia Tech, some of those.
He told the radio station Jacksonville it would not be Florida State or Clemson.
Don't believe
that. Yeah, you can't believe anything.
I don't believe that.
So anyway,
I can't believe he said that. How did that not make national news?
I don't know. That's what Matt Hayes told me, who was doing the interview with Frank Frangie on the Jacksonville station.
I can't imagine he would say it would not be Florida State. Right. How do you, if it's because Florida and South Carolina would put up a squawk, well, you just screwed over Texas A&M. What are you talking? This is nonsense. This is why I brought this up. The one thing he talks about more than anything is I and me. Go through any of these stories, and you'll find a million instances where he could easily say we, and it's I. Or it's the quote that, will you continue to expand? Well, a lot of people say that's up to me. Could you just say it's up to the SEC? It's up to our conference?
It's up to us.
He's got an arrogance. He's got an arrogance to him that Mike Slive, if he had it, he buried it at least. Anyway, he also talked about Tennessee and the cooperation that they showed with the NCAA and how it helped them. What did he tell you?
In the interview we did with him, he said there have been some that have said that the NCAA, that if you cooperate with the NCAA, it doesn't do you any good. He didn't say Missouri, but that's who he's probably referring to. But remember, he became the co-chair or the chair of the Reformation Committee, which said if you cooperate, then you should not get a postseason ban. And he pushed that narrative and said that certainly helped Tennessee in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, you cooperated, to the tune of $1.5 million with what you spent?
Yeah,
so that's a lot of cooperation in my book.
Well, and the cooperation paid off because of what you said. Yeah. The Reformation Committee came in after Tennessee had already turned itself in. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of luck. If that doesn't happen, if things don't fall the way it happened, then you may not have gone through that reformation process, and they would have bitten you the same way they bite everyone else.
Do you remember when Tennessee delayed their response? I think they knew this was
At that
coming.
point.
And why would they know?
Yeah.
Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, who was going to be the chairman of the Reformation Committee.
Inside info, baby.
Yeah. All right, so let's get back to this insane comment. What would be his reasoning for saying not Florida State or Clemson? I
don't know.
You weren't there. I just find that amazing that he would. Who does he go on the record and talk about ever in terms of schools?
Matt, this is what Matt Hayes told me. I said, I didn't hear that. I
Right.
listened to some of the interview, and he said, no, that's what he.
I wonder if he would actually
hear it.
stand up to that, because one thing you learn in journalism, you never say never.
Well, exactly.
You never say never, because you don't know what, the next shoe to drop or what the future holds.
It also leaves it open. I'm not questioning Matt Hayes.
Right.
But it also leaves it open what you hear. If somebody asks you, Florida State's complaining, Clemson are complaining, they're looking for this, and he says, well, we're looking at expanding into contiguous states, that you could take that as, oh no, we're more interested in new states. That doesn't necessarily mean we will not grab Florida State and Clemson if they want in. I find that hard to believe.
One quick thing on that. I was told that A&M didn't have the power to say no to Texas because A&M hadn't been in the league since 2012. Florida is a founding member, and they have more power to keep Florida State out. That's what I was told. So, again, who knows what's
It'll
going
all
on?
be this, baby.
Yeah,
It's all going to come down to who,
Exactly. If there's money on the table,
then that's what changes everything.
Florida didn't have the power to keep Florida State out when they went after them in the late 80s to get them to the 90s because they wanted Bobby Bowden. He says no. You wound up getting Arkansas and South Carolina instead. So where was Florida? It depends.
Right.
I find that hard to believe. Very curious. I find that to be a lie. Curious is a better word. All right. When we come back, Lane Kiffin says college football is a disaster with NIL and the transfer portal. Is it? We'll discuss that. We'll give you the results of the poll a little bit later. We'll talk UT Bowl destinations and much, much more. Come on back on the Sports Source.